And welcome everyone once again to the Shitlord Preachers podcast. This is episode 32. We are now presented by Think Liberty. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome to the Shitlord Preachers. It's basically where my friend Brook Potter and I, who both former preachers, now reformed shitlords, basically have conversations regarding politics as well as social and cultural issues that we come across. But today we are actually not joined by a guest, and I realized the last couple weeks was just guest after guest after guest. So today we're kind of back to a little bit more of the roots of our show. How's it going today, Brooke?
It's getting cold, Amos. I mean, dang it, man. For us out here in the UK, we had like a little bit of snow this morning, which is so unnatural for November. But yeah, I'm doing well now. How many episodes are we up to? This is like what, 600?
32. 32. Okay.
That's pretty cool. Right. Well, yeah, let the people know how we got started with this thing and
no, basically, like I was saying, Shitlord Preachers back in last year. If you guys do want to go back and listen to our old episodes, I was actually talking to some of the guys that Think Liberty, where we talked about how a lot of us have kind of come a long way regarding the quality. So you have us Shitlord Preachers that kind of came in partway through our series of episodes. We came in at episode 27. Whereas you have these other episodes on the Think Liberty Podcast Network that basically have had a certain number of episodes that are actually lower than us, while you have the actual Think Liberty Podcast is approaching 51 episodes, I think. So we're kind of in the middle there, where we're not quite to their level, but we're also ahead of the rest of the episodes, the shows that have started on the network. So definitely making some headway with our quality here, which is good.
And with that, I mean, we've also had some pretty spectacular guests.
Oh yeah, and you could say almost we're the most among the better sexually diverse.
More women and more tits.
Exactly. No, no. We've had 8 guests, and 3 of them were women. So we're kind of hitting that gender diversity, feminism. Huh?
That diversity quota.
Exactly. The show is not quite entirely female, but it is a decent amount that is not too shy of being truly diverse.
Fair enough. So what do we have on the docket for today? Since we don't have a guest,
we don't have a guest. So the topic today, we're going to be kind of going into a couple of things, but it's mainly surrounding one specific individual. Now, so since the midterm elections have kind of come and gone, and so a lot of people are happy. No more political ads, and politics should just be over, right? But no.
Never.
The presidential election is net for 2020 is just beginning. So if you guys have been keeping up, we've a couple of people have definitely started their campaigns early on to get a head start. One such individual, a guy named Andrew Yang, who is actually going to be running under the Democratic Party. Now, we didn't get him as a guest, which is, but however, a couple of our friends over in the news publication department over in Think Liberty, and it's actually going to be on Being Libertarian as well, got an interview with him, and we got a little sneak peek at the transcript of the interview, as well as we kind of looked into a couple of things this guy, Andrew Yang, kind of stands for. And Andrew Yang is a Taiwanese immigrant, so which kind of drew my attention. Me, with my mom's side of the family being from Taiwan, kind of drew our attention as a guy that I wanted to kind of look into. Okay, what does he stand for? What kind of policies? He's a Democrat. Is he just going to be a run-of-the-mill kind of SJW PC kind of guy? Is he just going to go hard left, or is he going to try to break the mold there and be a candidate that would be more let's just say less Hillary and Bernie like.
You said he's a Taiwanese immigrant, as in what is he second generation American and his parents were immigrants, or
Yeah. So I should have been more clear because he technically has to be born here.
yeah,
Uh,
that's constitutional.
yeah, I know that. What do you think? Who do you think I am? Uh, excuse me. So,
Arnold
um,
Schwarzenegger would be very upset.
but so yeah, his name is Andrew Yang. He's actually from Iowa, which is
Corn
kind of a
country.
little yeah, right, just south of here. And what's nice is it's he's coming out of a small area, and he's as far as I've seen, he's actually started to really get out there and really starting to start his tour, and he's starting to talk a lot about his big things on policy, and which really caught my attention. I mean, I'll actually pull up here. Excuse me. Let's see here.
So you didn't answer my question though. He is like a second generation
Oh,
born
yes.
American.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So this is him right here. Andrew Yang for presidential candidate. Humanity first with universal basic income.
Oh
Now, Brooke,
my.
do you know what universal basic income is?
Yes, I do, and it's a very hot topic at the moment. So we will get into that before we give it away.
Right. So, let's see here. So yeah, I mean, that's a big part of his policies, which is really interesting. You can see him; he's this well, Asian-looking guy. Um,
Master of the obvious there, Amos.
no, yeah, he's definitely drew my attention. I wanted to see what he's about. I mean, it's a bit of a shame that he's a Democrat, and I figured at least he'd maybe be like a Republican or something, because I figured maybe Taiwanese nowadays, I think they'd be more conservative, but I mean, then again, I mean, Taiwan is a very socialist kind of country with its
Yeah.
conservative and more left and right leaning parties, but unfortunately, he is here to be a Democrat.
Well, he can't run for the Republicans because Trump is running for the Republicans. So his only option is to run as a libertarian, and you basically do the Larry Sharp incident where people vote for party and you get nothing, or you try and run for the Democrats, as what they
Yeah.
used to call a blue dog Democrat. So you're a Democrat, but you're kind of conservative in your financial
But
disposition.
that's the thing, is you see his policies and you're starting to see he's actually not really right wing in really not too many ways, at least. We'll get into that a little bit more, but his big thing is this UBI, universal basic income, as well as what he calls, what was it, a human capitalism, which I think is just a nice little way of saying
Socialism.
yeah, basically. But I mean, but it wasn't like kind of your run of the mill, like, he wasn't like Alexandria Ocasio Cortez.
Right, yeah. Who is the
the congresswoman from New York that just won in a landslide as a socialist.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. And I think she was elected. She couldn't afford an apartment in Washington D.C. because like suddenly she realized these things
But
cost
then,
money.
but then through some digging in her financial records, they found she had more than enough money to do all this.
Right.
So
I thought some very rich donor bought her a place in D.C. or something like that.
Yeah, and see, this morning I just read up on what she had been up to, and apparently she had uploaded a video, and our friends at Being Libertarian both retweeted and shared it on their page, basically where she was saying, we're going to, and I'm paraphrasing a paraphrase essentially, but basically she was saying, we're going to go in and take over the
three branches of government,
the three chambers of government, the three chambers of Congress. That's right. And she goes, or rather, I mean, the three branches of government, the presidency, the Senate, and the House. It's like, wait, what?
now,
So,
now for people who don't know, the Europeans probably do not know the American system. What are the three branches of government? This is your social studies exam, Amos. You better
the
pass.
the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary.
Correct.
So
And
it's basically the president, the executive, the Congress, it basically House and Senate is the legislature, the judiciary being the Supreme Court.
correct.
And if you want to go even further with your checks and balances, so the legislature passes laws while the executive branch signs them into law, while the judiciary, if need be, um, has to deem whether or not the law that the executive branch signs is constitutional or not. Officially, only Congress can officially declare war, but now with the changes, you have the executive branch that is declaring undeclared wars. Um, and now you have the judiciary that is actually passing laws from the bench, which doesn't make much sense either. If you guys remember from when it was deemed constitutional for gay marriage, it was basically a law from the bench to make it constitutional.
Yeah.
And although that is not saying they passed a law, technically it was actually changing laws. So,
Yeah. I mean, Roe v. Wade, of course, is Roe v. Wade is another one where, again, it was the Supreme Court that suddenly decided that abortion as a human right was part of the Constitution. So yeah, you've had a very activist judiciary, I think, for at least the last 40 years. We'll see how it goes now that it's kind of tilted to the conservatives.
yeah, and that's going to be one of those things is both the left and the right are blatantly kind of just straight up saying like we're doing everything that those branches aren't supposed to do. I mean, Trump is signing in executive orders like there's, no tomorrow. You have the judiciary that's being filled up with more conservative judges. That is, people are worried that might change Roe v. Wade, overturn it. And then you have the legislature that is also kind of just doing whatever they're doing, I guess. I mean, with the midterms, with the midterms now come and gone, and you're going to have a very typical the shift in power in the midterms, where the what was it the okay, so the House is gone to the Democrats, but in a very small majority, while the Senate is remaining for the Republicans.
And they've
Um,
gained seats in the Senate.
and they've actually gained seats, so they have a stronger majority in the Senate now. Uh, regardless of what you think, if it's a sort of a red wave, blue wave kind of thing, it has become a bit of a red wave. You have your typical shift in power, but it's still coming back around to the fact that the Republicans and conservatives essentially are just still holding a lot of power. You still have a Republican president, you have a Republican Senate, you have not as huge of a majority in the House of Representatives, and the Supreme Court is only becoming more and more conservative. I
And
mean,
everybody is watching Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Is that it?
yeah,
Who
yeah,
is
Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and so she's had her little trip and fall kind of incident, so you never know. Maybe she's got to report some OSHA violation or something. Uh, excuse me, I actually just saw. I don't. Did you hear about this? There's a movie coming out about her.
Oh, really?
Yep. So
I did
it's
not know that.
so I forgot exactly the title of it. But basically, it's following her in the was it the 60s, I think. So she's basically becomes this uh, activist. It's showing her back when she was an activist, and she uh, back in a time when women didn't have as much of a say in politics and such. And so she's, you know, advocating for women's rights and all these different things. And you see how she played into that, how she's rose into that position. there's like a scene that they're showing, like she's at this sort of banquet, and they basically straight up asked, they said, "So, if you fine ladies could tell me, which men did you kick off to be here?" Like, kind of the showing like the more sexist overtones of of our former times.
I mean, that
And
was like in the 70s, 60s and 70s or something like that, right?
right, right, right. And so she, you're seeing her do all this, and I mean, it's the it's very much the typical. Um, I like the comedian Bill Burr, how he touched on this. He basically said like, there's always like, the white woman kind of coming in. Like it follows kind of the pattern of, if you remember, what was that movie? Hilary Swank was like a white teacher that went into a black school to like change. There's always like, so he says there's always the the white lady that goes into the black schools, and she's getting like messed with on her first day, and then she like does the stereotypical like, hey now, like puts her foot down, and then like they all of a sudden they're all like Shakespeare's or something, because she's an English teacher, and
Isn't that
she
the
makes
plot
them
to
huge.
Gangsta's Paradise or something?
Yeah. And he says it's always that. And then like, so like the first day she comes back home, and her like, effeminate boyfriend that's always like cooking something, wearing an apron, is like, just give it a chance, honey. And then she goes back and like changes the world with these kids, and and it's always some like white lady that's just coming in there and just like, saves the school or something or whatever. Like she's so devoted. So in the same way, you're seeing like Ginsburg is like this feminist figure, and she's like, women deserve a voice, and I deserve, to not be treated like, like I'm a woman and all this stuff. And then her husband is this like supportive guy who's of course totally cucking to her. Um and you're just, yeah, it's just funny, It, so
Who appointed Ginsburg again? Was it Nixon?
uh, good question.
I'm not sure, but I mean, the running joke for, I mean, again, the Europeans wouldn't necessarily know this. She's one of the oldest serving justices in the Supreme Court, and
Right.
she's always being pictured falling asleep at like the State of the Union,
Oh,
and so
she okay, she was actually appointed by Clinton in August of '93.
Bill Clinton. Okay, well,
She
yeah,
is
yeah,
the
that makes
second.
sense.
She is the second female justice of four to be confirmed to the court.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think was it Sotomayor? She was like the first Latina. I think she was she Clinton or was she Obama? I can't remember. But yeah, these have basically been pretty activist judges.
Sotomayor was appointed by Obama in
Yeah, it's
2009.
Obama. Yeah, yeah. And I remember that shit show when the Republicans wanted to put I can't remember his name, but he was a Latino guy. Again, a brilliant justice, but the Democrats rejected it because they wanted to be the first ones to put a person of Latin descent into the courts to try and like pander to their base, sort of thing. Um, so yeah, we've been seeing this kind of Kavanaugh witch hunt thing going on for quite some time.
Right. I mean, uh, yeah, it's just yeah, it's
It's going to be the
interesting.
legacy of Trump, though. I mean, if he gets another term, and God forbid anything happens to Ginsburg, I mean, she is the most likely to retire or possibly pass on. If Trump gets another Supreme Court justice, I mean, that locks up the court for at least a generation.
Yep.
And yeah, so
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be his legacy no matter what.
Right. Yeah. I'm actually looking here. Since we nowadays we got to actually check this. Since we got the viewers, our former guest Eric Laprice is actually in here, and he said she's
What's
so
going on,
old.
Eric?
He says
She
she's
is
so
old.
old. I mean, uh, she's. I mean, yeah, she's. I just looked it up. Yeah, she's 85. I mean,
Yeah,
at some point you got to retire.
they won't let her.
they won't let her, or she won't let herself. That's
Well,
the
it's
question. I
both.
mean,
There's a lot of pressure for her to stay on the bench from the Democratic Party. I'm sure. I mean, that's speculation, to be honest.
you
But
gotta really hold on to that last little bit of,
yeah, exactly,
But I mean,
exactly.
that's just gotta be like too much stress for a person to. I mean, I wouldn't say that it comes anywhere near to be a stressful job, like being the president or something. But I mean, it's got to be one of those things where she's just literally just holding on, just sitting there in that
Yeah. I mean, you've seen it. She can't stay awake for like the addresses and stuff like that, and
I mean, is she
she's always
even like
hunched over sleeping.
is she even doing anything at this point? Like, if when
Yeah, yeah,
cases are
she's
being
hearing the
presented,
cases.
is she's hearing the cases, but is she coherent enough to even follow through?
I don't think anybody's going to ask that question. And even still, like, let's be fair. Reagan, in his last year, I mean, you probably wouldn't have known this, but he was probably kind of away with the fairies at that point. Um, with his disease and I think mental issues and stuff like that. And it was believed, we don't know how true it is, but Nancy Reagan was kind of running the country. But the White House staff was running interference to protect Reagan, and all this kind of stuff. So again, these people are surrounded by huge staffs
Yeah.
and they've got a lot of things.
Uh,
It's all about how it looks.
right. So Eric here is actually he makes a good point. He said that she said, yeah, he said she said she's going to die on the bench, and
Some do.
I mean, you might as well just be like the Pope, you know,
Yeah,
regardless
I
of
mean,
what you
Anthony
think about.
Scalia died in the bench. He was, very conservative. I mean, he was young, considering the stuff. Yeah, she's gonna stick it out. She's gonna stick it out for as long as humanly possible, and the Democrats are gonna support her all the way. But yeah,
Right,
getting back to your guy though. I mean, is this a racist thing? Like, are you just like siding with the Asian? Are you being a cliche?
No, I'm actually not siding with the Asian. If anything, just the Asian catches my attention, and I just feel it'd be cool to talk about. You
Are you
know,
saying that Asian men catch your attention?
exactly, exactly.
Okay.
I am coming out, everyone. No, I'm kidding. No. When it's there's a sense of belonging here. It's like when it's one of your guys, you gotta check them out, see what's going on. Like, hey, one of the homies is getting a little weird here. We gotta check him out. What's he doing? You making us all look bad, making us look like all a bunch of commies. Um,
Fair
that's
enough.
that's what's interesting is Taiwan is very socialistic. They have universal health care, but there's such an overwhelming like shunning from the idea of discussing or ever praising the idea of communism.
Right.
Like because of China, they're just like no, communism never ever. Like that fear is the
Mm.
balance to keep it to be essentially democratic socialist. Because you look at your democratic socialist, either it goes full board socialism pending communism, or it shifts more into the capitalist side. While the overwhelming social just fear of communism is going to keep it in check for
Right.
generations, where they're like, we're never going to be like China because of what they did to Taiwan and all this stuff, and continuing to do. Um,
Yeah. I
but
mean,
they're because of the social fabric of just Chinese people in general, they still maintain a very social society.
yeah,
Yeah,
social community is more important than the individual as a philosophy.
right.
Right, but not
So,
necessarily as a business or that kind of. I mean, is it a benevolent dictatorship like Singapore?
see, it's not very authoritarian though. That's the thing.
Right. Okay.
To my understanding, I mean, growing up, when I was in Taiwan, I never really had any fear per se of the government.
Right.
If anything, you would just hear about every other president or major political figure getting caught in embezzling and some sort of corruption.
Right.
Uh,
The usual scandals.
the usual scandals. Yeah, I mean, it's nowhere near some of these other countries. So for the viewers and listeners, I also do a weekly news roundup on Think Liberty on their website if you guys ever want to check that out. But it's as I started picking up on that to do these stories, week after week, it's human rights violation after human rights violation. It might as it's like there's like an Asian equivalent to human rights violations in Asia. It's just you get a human rights violation, you get a violation, you get a humanitarian crisis. It's with Asia Bibi, the Pakistani Christian woman that's dealing with her issues. You have the state counselor of Myanmar. I forgot exactly her name. She has a longer name. Who was stripped of all of her Amnesty International awards as well as all her other humanitarian awards because of the genocide and refugee crisis that she created in
Really?
Myanmar. It was a group of sort of a subgroup of Muslim ethnic group in Myanmar.
Muslim is not an ethnicity.
Well, I know, but I mean a Muslim group that is. They said what was it? Rohingya Muslims. So it's
Okay.
and it's a not. I think it's not just there's an ethnicity with a religious identity with it. So
Okay.
I know they're not an ethnicity. I'm not getting into that. You know me better than that, Brooke.
I know, but
Uh,
we got new listeners, so we gotta kind of fill them in.
yeah. So basically, yeah, 750,000 refugees displaced forced into Bangladesh.
Right.
Um, but what had been going on there was basically she was the kind of running things and was kind of hiding the international eyes from the atrocities being committed by her military: rape, arson, displacing people, genocide, all this stuff. The
Right.
typical human rights nonsense.
The typical human atrocities that happen.
In
It's
Asia.
yeah.
China sitting here saying we don't have any re-education camps. 1 month later, they legalize it and say, "Oh yeah, totally," because terrorists and
Yeah,
extremism.
yeah. It's behavior modification training. It's
Yeah,
never called it's never called what it is, but
just look the other way, guys. Don't worry. And then of course you have North Korea, who's kind of like they're having these talks with us, and then they're kind of like dialing back, but then they'll some foreign minister, high level, will just have a little too much to drink and be like, no, we're totally going to rebuild our nuclear arsenal. And we're just like, no, you're not, because we won't give you anything. Which I think is a good position. The U.S. is holding fast to their position that North Korea will get zero financial aid until they're pretty much completely denuclearized.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, and Trump should get the Nobel Peace Prize for definitely for his dealings with North Korea. But I mean, okay, so you've kind of highlighted for the listeners the region, like what it's like for our guy. Are we calling him Chairman Wang or?
Sherman Wang? No, that's me. No. His last name is Yang. So Chairman Yang.
Is
Yes,
it Yang? Oh, okay.
Yang. Andrew Yang. So
Andrew, yeah. Oh, sorry. For some reason, I got a Wang interview transcript, so I just looked at that.
Andy Yang.
It's Yang. Okay. So, I mean, we kind of understand a little bit about the philosophy, where he's coming out from.
Right,
And
right, right.
I understand he's a businessman as well. So that's going to be the new trend for 2020. It's going to be a bunch of business people trying to get in there.
Yeah, you got to get your Democratic counterpart to Trump as the businessman type. That's going to be, hey, they had a businessman and he seemed kind of interesting, so we got to be like hip and cool like the kids are, and
Down with the youth.
exactly, we got to have a cool hip businessman. And look, he's Asian, so we got to really double down the diversity side of things
Right.
too. I mean,
So,
I mean, he's an interesting Democrat, like
so
like
first of all, what would you describe as a Democrat to say that he's an interesting Democrat? Like, what is his position that makes him interesting?
I mean, he's obviously taking. He's actually, from what I read on this, and we'll go into a little bit more, is he's trying to change it back to like focusing on the middle class, which is a big part of his universal basic income is supposed to help them.
Right.
The disenfranchised, the minorities, and such. Um, and then, of course, creating this human capitalism to sort of better suit them. And yeah, I mean, it's so he's left wing, trying to appeal back to bring back to appealing to the middle class, the working class, the lower class, even to get their vote with this universal basic income, and just overall policies that are to promote welfare and taking care of those kinds of people. Um, I mean, he's
Interesting.
trying to put a little bit of a twist on it to be like, oh, I'm like, I'm the capitalist that is going to do all this. So, if anything, it's probably a gearing towards, well, trying to create some sort of a like Scandinavian America, sort of
Right.
capitalism with high taxation. Because you're not going to pay for a lot of these things he's proposing without high taxes. He's also pushing for I think it's universal health care. I don't know what was
Is
the
he doing universal
exact.
health care as well?
So his big three policies. Here we go. Medicare for all. There we go.
Oh, he's pushing for Medicare for all. Okay.
Right. So universal basic income, Medicare for all, and human capitalism. Different issues. So I'll just quickly lightning right through all these talking points he has on the issues. Fight for equal pay, the freedom dividend, which is his term for the universal basic income. Combat climate change, reduce mass incarceration, the opioid crisis, LGBTQ rights, gun control in the Second Amendment, paid family leave, support for the arts, control the cost of higher education, right to privacy slash abortion and contraception, campaign finance reform, vocational education, carbon fee and dividend, increasing teacher salaries, early childhood education for all, legalize marijuana, try to get those libertarian points, make Puerto Rico a state, value added tax, hold pharmaceutical companies accountable, human centered capitalism, invest in America's mental health, American journalism fellows, news and information, ombudsman. I don't even know what that is.
Ombudsman. Yeah, it's like the people's contact to the legal system. I'm
Okay.
dealing with one right now, actually. I probably
Excuse me.
shouldn't talk about it.
Reduce harm to children caused by smartphones. Every cop gets a camera. I can like there's a couple of things here that I kind of okay, cool. NCAA should pay athletes. Nuclear launch decisions, limit bureaucracy in the federal workforce, local journalism fund, basic banking services through making the post office a bank. What?
Oh, that's an
Uh,
interesting take.
American exchange program, prevent corruption among federal regulators, closely monitor mental health of White House staff. What? Free marriage counseling for all, automatically sunset old laws, prosperity grants, prevent airlines from removing customers. Oh, because of the United Airline incident.
Right.
Improve the American scorecard, increase assistance for single parents. Fund medical technology innovation. Holy crap, there's a lot of stuff. All right, I'm
All
not going to
right.
go through
Yeah, we
too many
can't.
of those.
We'll
Yeah.
put a link to his website if people want to check this
Yep.
stuff out. All right, so let's deal with the elephant in the room, which is the UBI, Universal Basic Income. And I'll just put in my two. Well, you go ahead and tell us what the Universal Basic Income is.
So the world we're in right now, there's a rise of automation. More and more
Right.
jobs are being automated. I mean, anyone that's working in like a factory, some sort of assembly line, you're not really going to have that going on much more. A lot of these jobs are just going to be automated to whether it's like robots or just assembly lines that don't require much human attention. You're seeing anything from like Amazon. Amazon is starting to have more robots sort of sorting out packages and such at their HQ state places, their headquarters. You also have, if you know the Chinese wholesale company Alibaba, um, they are they have robots that are sorting out lots of the items they're shipping out too. So you're seeing this rise in automation. Excuse me. You have Elon Musk that is creating the self-driving not pickup truck, semi truck, and just self-driving cars in general. So jobs that require a driver to deliver things Those are going to become more automated eventually, just to streamline, where you'll have whole industries of truck drivers, factory workers, assembly line individuals. They're going to lose their jobs to automation. But so the answer that the left has basically proposed to alleviate this massive, what they see as, they're projecting as a massive joblessness that's going to come ahead, this unemployment that's going to happen as a result of automation, is this thing called universal basic income. Now in Canada, they're experimenting it on a small scale, where certain cities are being receiving basically some sort of a monthly government welfare check, but it's not necessarily welfare. It's like just a full on pay. It's like an extra salary from the government just for being a citizen, and it's being tried in different ways. The I guess the ultimate end game of something like this is to have a majority of the world's population, or at least the nation that you're in that's doing this, to be living entirely off your UBI, where you will still maybe have some sort of a part-time gig going on, but you have your primary income is coming from this universal basic income. It's a supplement, like, hey, everything's automated. You can't really get a job anywhere, and you're gonna have like a smaller and smaller population that's working, actively working like a full-time job. Or you're gonna see this, as Ocasio Cortez says, the people working two jobs is the reason unemployment is so low. Um, that's going to go away, and well, basically, no, 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 that's not how it works. That we're basically, yeah, jobs will be completely outsourced to automation. I mean, you see McDonald's, they don't need cashiers anymore. You never know, at some point they won't need, their grill cooks anymore. You never
I mean,
know.
they do have robots that are making pizzas, that are frying burgers.
Right,
Um,
right, right.
I mean, the automation problem. This is actually something I kind of had a real run in with back in 2012 when I was doing law as a subject. And I was kind of looking at it like, okay, what could I do if I decided to actually get the full law degree? I didn't want to be a lawyer, but when I started to look into it and I saw the algorithms that weren't just going after like menial jobs, they're actually going after like big law and banking and all these other things, like huge swaths of the society, like medicine and other things like that. A lot of stuff can be diagnosed through these algorithms and stuff. So even doctors are kind of on the chopping block. But like a large part of law used to be, as an intern, you go into a law facility, a firm or something like that, and you got to read all of these papers and pull out the evidence and stuff like that for whoever your associate was, well, whoever your partner was. All of that's done by machine now,
Yeah.
right? So there's just a shortage of that. So when I was kind of looking at things and was like, what am I going to do with this? I realized it didn't really make a lot of sense. Law is a dying industry, and that's why I actually got into trading, because there are two things you're always going to need. You're always going to have markets to raise capital for businesses, and you're always going to need housing. So stock and real estate is basically, that's my business. But it actually stems from exactly the point that you're making now, that the automation is coming, and we need to be ready for it. We need to make decisions and choices, as a result of it. So
Yeah.
this guy's proposing the UBI, which Milton Friedman supported the UBI. And he's a big free market guy. Did you know that?
I did not know that. I mean, I think that the main concern is not so much whether or not UBI is supposed to even remotely start to happen now. I mean, with the automation on its way, I mean, you and I have talked about this, Brooke, kind of like touching on, like, okay, when is automation going to truly start becoming a problem?
Mhm.
We're discussing UBI and all this, and I mean, I don't know if you feel this. I don't feel it's anywhere near going to be happening. It might we might need UBI, like actually need it, maybe in my 50s and 60s at the earliest. I feel I'm
I, I
26
I would
right now.
agree. I don't think it's. I think there's a lot of innovation that's taking place right now. I think especially the rise of social media has given a lot of people a means, through YouTube and social Instagram and these other things, they can make an income. You know, basically non-talented people who look good can make an income on social media.
Right,
which
right, right. I
so I mean,
mean,
there are new avenues for people to create wealth. So I agree that it's not a problem yet, but it's coming, which is the issue.
I mean, we've talked about like how jobs are created, like in so many cases where, excuse me, where there's been a shift in industry. So you had the Industrial Revolution, you had when we switched to a more agrarian society, then
The
things like
information
that.
age.
Yeah, then now into the information age. We've always seen a shift. We've never saw any major like, you know, I mean, you're not going to get your South Park, they took our gerbs, um, levels of, I mean, you have on small scales, local scales, you'll see some jobs shifting, but really most people, over time will eventually just adapt, move to a different area, get a different kind of job, and just things start to return to normal. They sort of achieve a sort of equilibrium where now we're back to normal levels of employment and unemployment, where you're not having a huge unemployment disparity that happens, barring some, economic issue that's going on at the time. So you have, this UBI is supposed to meet the coming at some point, I guess, millions of Americans that'll just all go out of work when their jobs are completely replaced by robots. Um, so what, and like this guy Andrew Yang is proposing is $1,000 a month of what he calls the freedom dividend. Um,
So I mean,
which
if this guy gets elected, obviously this is not going to be happening a couple of years from now. He's going to try and push this through pretty quick. Now, I mean, just to be fair, let's kind of explain what his plan is. He is in large part trying to view this as a welfare replacement strategy. So it's an opt-in program that he wants to do. If somebody opts in to get the freedom dividend, they instantaneously forfeit any other type of welfare that they might be receiving. And I actually
now,
think this is the big flaw in his plan, and I'll get to it in a minute. So yeah, so there are people who are on benefits right now, some kind of welfare check, and there's so many programs. I think it's like 225 US programs, from child support, single parenthood, housing, all these different types of things. And this is the flaw, is that people actually collect more than $1,000 a month in welfare benefits in the system as it is now.
Yeah,
Right?
you're gonna have a welfare shift now. People aren't getting enough money.
Right. So this is it. There's no incentive built into this program for people who are receiving more than $1,000 a month to switch to making less money. So you got to keep both systems. You're going to get a whole bunch of freedom-loving people who want free money jumping on, but you're not reducing the welfare rules in any kind of capacity.
I mean, you and I have talked about this regarding welfare and such. Like, even as a libertarian, I gotta be totally honest that if the government's gonna give me $1,000, no strings attached,
Hell
probably gonna
yeah.
take it.
Yeah, if they want to spend money stupidly, I have no like ethical thing or anything against somebody who takes money that the government spends stupidly, right? You'd be stupid not to at the end of the day,
Yeah, that
right?
doesn't necessarily. I mean, if it's already put in place and we voted against it and it still happened,
Yeah,
well, I guess I'm getting that money and I might as well do some good with it. Better than hopefully than the government's going to do with it. I
yeah,
mean, if
yeah.
they're
I
going to
mean,
give me the money, I might as well go like make something of it.
completely agree. So I have no qualms. I don't think there's any kind of ethical dilemma or principle that you're violating in taking money from the government. But that's exactly the point. Is that on my end or your end? Sorry.
I not sure.
Yeah. I just heard like a baby crying. I don't know where that came from. But yeah, so okay, so this guy gets elected, he institutes UBI, and you as a libertarian, you could use an extra $1,000 a month,
Exactly.
right? And I'm sure there are a lot of our listeners who, hey, that sounds pretty good. I don't think you're receiving any welfare benefits, so it's no loss to you, really.
It's a gain. I
It's a
mean,
gain.
if anything, I would liken it to like, well, if I'm not getting 100% of my money back every year as a tax return, I might as well get it through that to kind of
Agreed. I agree. I think you have an ethical responsibility to pay as little tax as possible. So whatever you're paying out, if you're getting $1,000 a month coming in, so that's £12,000. Sorry, $12,000 a year. Hell yeah! I think that's morally is the right thing to do. But this is, of course, the dilemma is that you're one of those people that's not on welfare. And I think what is the number of people in the U.S. on welfare right now? Like 40 million or something?
I think so. Yeah, yeah.
Something like 40 million. In a population that's what, 300 million people?
330. Yeah.
Okay, so that's 290 people, right?
Like,
Let's take off let's take off 50 who might be children not eligible for this kind of thing.
right, right, right.
So you're talking about 240 million people remaining that are going to be collecting $1,000 a month on top of the 40 million that are receiving welfare. Now, as a percentage of your GDP of compulsory spending, which is Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid,
Entitlements.
entitlements, all of the entitlements, that consumes what, 80% of the US budget as it is right now?
Entitlements. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty close. Yeah,
It's
it's a
it's it's
lot.
big. It's the biggest chunk of the US budget is these spending, Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, and all of those kind of grant programs.
Right,
Your
right, right.
discretionary spending is only like 800 billion or maybe like a trillion dollars out of like the 4 billion, whatever. It's not the majority.
Billion.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So if you are not reducing those welfare rolls, which is the bulk of the government spending, and you're going to add 240 million freedom dividend recipients, you've got a budget crisis, right?
Yeah. And which is why, as we saw, he wanted to institute a value-added tax. Now he's instituting all these new taxes. It's like,
Yeah.
in human-centered capitalism, like, oh, so you're not only going to create more spending, but you're also going to create a system that is going to be more favoring, I'm guessing you're trying to mess with an economy, and it's going to stifle growth, I think.
Correct. And innovation.
Right, right, right. So there's a whole bunch of issues already. So, however, I mean, if anything, in some ways, it seems more utopian than Bernie Sanders. In other ways, maybe not so crazy. So,
No, I agree. I agree. So, I mean, we haven't even got to Medicaid for all, which is another quagmire unto itself, and that's the whole single payer nonsense. But just based on the economics, like one of the things he wants to do to raise the money, he's expecting people to come off the welfare rolls. I don't think that's true. Apparently there are some women in Hawaii that are making 35,000 US dollars a year off the state in terms of the collection of all their benefits. So they're not giving up on the welfare rolls, right?
I mean, just when you thought California was pretty bad, I think Hawaii is like
Hawaii and Puerto Rico is not far behind, but in terms of the entitlements and stuff like that. But that's a colonial problem. Like Guadeloupe in the Caribbean is a colony of France. Every year, every month, there's a strike for more money because they just want the colonial power to pay, right? So that's kind of what goes on with these places. But the point I was making, so that's one thing is he wants to try and get people off the rolls. Commendable, unlikely. The value-added tax is the other side to it. So he wants to tax consumption. And to be fair, I would say if there was taxation, I think we agree that some kind of value-added tax based on sales and consumption is probably the better way to do it. Not that we're condoning any kind of taxation. But then he also wants to attack all the internet giants, right? So he wants to go after Amazon and Google and Facebook and all these guys who are making money by filtering all of their revenues through Ireland, which has a much lower tax rate, or the Bahamas, as the case might be. So, the close the loophole type of thinking. And, well, we know what happens when you try to tax these very big companies, as we saw with Amazon and their the battle with Washington State wanting to impose a an employee tax of like $500 per employee on Amazon because they had all these people. Well, one, the automation stepped up, and Amazon basically said, "Well, fuck off, right? We'll leave the state."
I mean, they're already on the flip side of that. You heard about the $15 an hour
minimum
going
wage.
on. Yeah, they basically said, "Yeah, we're going to make $15 an hour for us, yeah, because we can afford it." And then now they're going to lobby for everyone else to do it, to
Exactly.
basically shut out the competition, because now their competition can't keep up. They won't be able to keep up with meeting these requirements.
Yeah,
It's a double-edged sword of basically corporatism, trying to control the political interest to favor their company, picking winners and losers.
correct. Correct.
Not what capitalism was supposed to be for.
Well, I mean, this is the big deception that a lot of people don't seem to understand. If the state has the biggest gun, so they control force in theory, so the police force, military, and stuff like that. But they also have the biggest pot of money, right? And if you think that people are not going to try to influence where that gun is pointing and where that money goes, and it's all going to be benevolent, angelic saints making all the decisions, and not unscrupulous characters who can be bought and bribed, you are delusional, right? This is the fundamental flaw of government, right?
Right. Yeah,
And even if you wanted to do it honestly, can you really afford for your competition to lobby and put you out of business? So it's almost like a mutually assured destruction. Businesses have to use the state because their competition will use it against them.
Right. I mean, when you're literally the richest man in the world, you're nothing short of going to try to manipulate your literal market in your favor.
Of course, of course. But all right, but going back to our guy, Mr. Yang, it's Yang, right? Andrew Yang.
Yep.
Yeah. So all right, so I definitely see an economic deficit. But what about the places that have actually implemented this UBI? Do we know anything about these places?
I actually haven't. I know the big ones that we've heard about are is what's going on in Canada. Let's see, universal basic income experiment. There we go. But yeah, it basically in Finland they're basically experimenting with it, but that's a whole nother thing. Let's see here. So Finland's universal basic income will end next year. Lawmakers are quietly moving forward towards a different welfare approach. The basic income program in Finland, which is praised as cutting edge when it was announced, pays $690 to 2,000 Finns each month. Okay, with no conditions. So the Finland Social Security Institution, Kela, selected participants at random from people between 25 and 58 years old who were unemployed initially. Initially, the program was supposed to be expanded this year to include workers as well as non-workers, but instead, the monthly payouts these individuals will end.
Okay, so they ended the program in Finland. I think I knew about that.
Yeah, so it says it was proposed as a solution to the unemployment rate, which reached a 17-year high of 10% in 2015. Okay, so they passed the bill to require job seekers to work 18 hours minimum for 3 months, 18 hours a week for 3 months. Okay, it has some powerful supporters. Yeah, so Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, they were
of course,
venture capitalists, and Sam
vulture
Altman?
capitalists.
Venture capitalists. Sam Altman was giving 50 households in Oakland up to $1,500 a month as a basic income experiment. Let's see here. So
we don't really have much in the way of results of this. We just know they're ending the programs. So I mean, what do you think would be the outcome? So Amos, we give you $1,000 a month, just on top of everything else. What do you do? Tell us.
Hookers blow, man.
Not possibly at the same time, but
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's. I mean, you're definitely going to have those people that are going to abuse it. You know, 1 month they might do something with it, and you might have people that are going to do it all the time. And if it's going to be offered, you know, if the freedom dividend, I mean, if it's going to be truly called the freedom dividend, then I have the freedom to do what I want with it.
I mean,
Um,
that's the idea. You can,
and,
it's
and
your
and
money. There's no
right, so
limitation on it. Yeah.
right, so you're going to start seeing a huge shift in, you know, some people are, some people might indulge, some people might invest. You know, people will maybe who are living paycheck to paycheck. Either they're going to up their spending on their lifestyle, so they can live a little bit more comfortably, and some people might not even save it. You know, I might try to save some of it. I'll be honest. You know, in the beginning, it's obviously going to be a bit of a, you know, it's going to be play money at first, just to
Are you
be.
saying this is going to bankroll your poker playing?
Shh. I'm not talking about this. I mean, it could definitely be that. I mean, you know, it could be something like that. People could use it. You know, maybe they save up over a 1 year period, you know, to get $12,000 to use for some sort of business venture. Um, you know, whether they're going to put it into some sort of fund, whether they're going to make it as part of a purchase, or they use that to supplement their income to cover certain bills. So for me, if I had $1,000 a month, that would cover rent and all my utilities.
Right.
You know, and then now the rest of the money I earn on my actual job, I can do what I want with or save as well. You know.
So you're going to keep working if you're getting $1,000
Yeah.
a month. Yeah.
Yeah. You know.
Yeah. And that's
Because
good.
if
Are they taxed on this money? That was a question that actually wasn't addressed. So
I
does your
mean,
tax bracket go up by $12,000?
see, and that's another good question because yeah,
Because you might actually end up with less money overall if the progressive tax
right,
works
right.
that
I
way.
mean, it would only really make sense if it was a completely tax free. You don't have to report it as part of your taxable income.
Sure, I would agree.
Um, because that's how you really get it to move. I mean, you're not gonna, you know, tax it again. It's like, come on, you know. um, yeah, you're gonna see a lot of these different changes. So I think the way, you know, the average across human nature, just the population, it's probably not going to be the best. Um,
Right.
you're going to get
Why
more
would you say
money
that?
because not everyone is like me, and the average human is probably more indulgent, more wasteful with their spending. I mean, if we're to follow by example,
Hmm.
and our example is the most wasteful spender in the world, the U.S. government. Uh,
I don't know. The Chinese aren't far behind, man.
yeah, but see, they have social cohesion, whereas we don't quite have that. I mean, our freedom tends to lead us in different directions, different
Right.
interests, whereas with them, their communism and social fabric kind of holds them together.
In theory, sure.
In theory, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So you look at, you know, the average human over time is going to just spend money wherever they please, and that could be literally wherever they please. If they want to have you know, more steak dinners, just so they can feel good for a month, or if they, you know, you have the more wasteful spending, you're gonna. I mean, you're probably gonna see even, you know, you know, the drug trade might start going up too, um, because
So,
people can
so
actually afford it.
what do you think is going to happen when everybody starts going out for steak dinners?
I mean, we could talk the carnivore diet on that,
I
but
mean, no, I mean, the point I was making was this will have an inflationary effect on prices.
oh yeah, yeah. Because now if everyone is getting an extra $12,000 a year,
Yeah.
what is that going to mean? I mean, that's more money that the people can spend. So now prices of certain things might start going up. Um,
Correct.
I mean, you're going to see a shift too, because people might quit jobs or at least cut back their hours so they don't work as much. So certain businesses don't have as much of a workforce to work with,
Right.
because now the government is becoming an employer of
Yeah.
simply just being a citizen. You're being employed to be a citizen. So if I'm making, I mean, you know, if I take my income and I mean, I could literally cut out like 25% of my working hours. I could give myself a whole extra day or two a week to do whatever. Simply
Right.
for being a citizen, I have money, you know.
Correct.
Um, but you know, like I said for myself, I'm going to spend the money probably in a more productive way in the long run. Uh, gotta have, you
We
know,
hope.
we hope. I mean, we definitely got to have a little fun with it to begin with. I think you know some people will like that, but a majority of the humans in this country in general are going to spend the money probably in a more wasteful way rather than productive way. Welfare, unfortunately, is because it's not hard earned. The mentality you have towards receiving that check is going to be different.
I agree. I agree. So, would you say, um, would you rather be in favor of tax cuts rather than a universal basic income?
Um, yeah, tax cuts. I'd rather take the tax cuts.
Yeah,
So
I think
if
it's a
you
cheaper
cut,
way to actually implement this whole thing.
I mean, if you're going to give me a $12,000, you know, tax credit,
Yeah,
I will take that.
right. Yeah, I think because I believe well Milton Friedman as well as others they recommended well like a flat tax, but they also had like the uh, negative tax or something like that for the poor, where they actually get some money back, you know, because of stuff like that. But you know, this is always the brainwashing of status thinking. They think that the answer to everything is more government, right? So you want to you know do this freedom dividend, the UBI and stuff like that, and you want to give money to people on behalf of the state when there's a completely, you know, harmless way to do that without you know, creating a new bureaucracy, without having to change a bunch of laws, which is simply to cut the taxes, right? You cut taxes and people make an extra $1,000 a month. Like in the Trump tax cut, I don't know if you benefited from the
Oh yeah.
revised taxes. And
Yep.
all right, so I mean, I'm not going to ask you for your financials, but how far, you know, I mean, has that benefited you? I mean, is that something that you were grateful
Um.
for? I mean, did it
Yeah.
did it make a difference? It wasn't like just
So it didn't make much of an impact, obviously, in this last year's tax return, but my projected tax return, pending, you know, based upon the fact that if I made the same exact amount of money, which is
yeah,
not going to be the case, um, making the same amount of money as the year before with the present tax cuts, I would get back an extra 25% of my tax return.
which is substantial.
Yeah. So it was, you know, it'd be the difference between, yeah, basically, yeah, 25%. We'll just leave it at that.
That's
Not
pretty.
thinking
Yeah, I
too
don't want you
much.
to give numbers. I wouldn't let you.
But yeah, but I mean, it's so, you know, I mean, even, what's her name? When you heard about these tax cuts and how some of these Democratic lawmakers were kind of like, yeah, but really though, like $1,000 a year, you think that's going to make a difference? They kind of figured that was a good like number to throw out there for the public. Like, what if everyone got an extra $1,000 a year? And they were
Yeah,
like that's going to do anything. And a lot of people kind of there's a backlash from both the right and sort of the independent voters that were like, screw you, Democrats. $1,000 is going to help me out a lot. You know,
correct.
I'm going to take the tax cut. You know, even I remember we had a staff meeting at my job, and basically our regional guy was talking to us. He goes, he goes, you're probably noticing in your pay stubs you're getting now, you're seeing the tax cuts. And I looked on there and I saw a couple extra percentage points towards take home rather than towards taxing. You know,
Right. Excellent.
so yeah, we get to, you know, we get this, there's an app, we see like our pie chart of our money, and basically we could see more money was coming back to us. um but yeah, you're seeing that, and that's definitely going to help people now. Yeah, a $12,000 tax credit for the year though, um for everyone that's working and not working. Hmm.
I mean, is so in the UK, we for personal taxes, we do have a cutoff point of £12,000. So anything you earn, if you earn less than £12,000 a year, you don't pay any taxes on that. What is there something similar like that in the US, or it's every dollar?
um I think it is. Oh, what is it? I remember. I remembered it because I was. I think I had a year, or like it was either me or one of my siblings that had a job where they actually didn't have to.
They didn't have to
Either
pay
if
anything.
they didn't have to pay anything, or they got like a full refund of all of the money they paid in.
Right.
Um, I'd have to look into that, but it is definitely there is a set number in it. I think it is actually a little lower than
Right.
probably what you guys have set for it. Um, okay, how much money do you need to make to pay taxes? I guess.
Yeah, I think it's like probably 12,000 US, 12,000 US a year or something like that. Because I
Yeah.
think at that point you're like under the poverty line. It would just be cruel. Well, I mean, all taxes are cruel, but particularly cruel to tax you if you're that
Right,
poor.
right, right. Let's see here. Two,
It's
12.
usually called a tax-free allowance or something like that.
Okay, yeah, actually, I should just look that up. But yeah, I mean, tax-free income? No.
No, tax-free allowance. Yeah. So like even in my home country of Trinidad and Tobago, I think the cutoff point was basically 10,000 US, which was roughly 70,000 TT dollars. It's actually not as much, but I think they put it to 70,000 TT dollars. And the majority of the country doesn't make that much money. The majority of the country is making half that. So they've literally removed half of the taxpayers off of the rolls back in Trinidad. But that's because they got oil and gas. So, they're not trying to squeeze people for money.
Right, right, right. So let's see here. So it looks like single taxable income marginal $9,000.
$9,000 is the untaxable amount.
So yeah, it says marginal tax rate starts at 10%.
Mm-hmm.
10% tax rate between $0 and $9,325.
There you go.
And I think, and you have to take that with the standard deduction, which is 15,000. So, okay.
Yeah, we don't need a breakdown on U.S. tax
Right.
law.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a
we'll be here for a few weeks.
Yeah, we'll never end this stream.
But yeah, it's basically it's there is an amount where there's an amount of money that you would make where then your taxable income would be due to your deductions and such can be offset.
Right.
That's one thing I actually learned last year for the first time. Like, really had a good idea because I was starting to get upset. I said, I make this much money. I just barely jumped the tax bracket. Then I called up my family who does taxes and shifted it. And they said, oh, no, you got to deduct this, deduct that, and write this off. Oh, yeah,
Right.
you're in a completely different bracket now and you get more money back. Oh, okay. And of course, every year I got to make the joke, like, if a refund is basically a return on money because of dissatisfaction with services, can I get all my money back because I'm not happy with the government?
Yeah. I mean, it's a pain all over the place. But all right, so going back to your guy,
my guy.
So your guy, are you supporting him in 2020?
No, but I would love to meet the guy and actually talk to him. I'd love to talk to the guy, get not just for the sake of just the political side, but even just hey, another Taiwanese guy in politics. If he even has a remote chance of getting out there, it'd be kind of cool to say, yeah, a Taiwanese guy is going to become president.
Right.
There would be a sense of like, hey, we made it or whatever.
Some in-group preferencing going on.
Oh yeah. I mean,
racist.
I mean, white people get it every year. Why can an Asian guy get it in the U.S.?
There you go. There you go.
I mean, if he shows himself to be qualified at least to the masses, I wouldn't support him. But if he shows himself qualified to the masses to be appealing and worthy of at least to get nominated, then yeah, more power to him. I wouldn't support him.
I'll say this. I mean, I don't know very much about the guy. I've watched Well, I've read the transcript and stuff like that, and I think he's got a major problem. I think his problem is that he's relying too much on facts and information, and he's not playing the politics, right? So I
Not
mean, for
yet.
all, not yet, not yet. You have to play the politics, and this is of course the Larry Sharp dilemma, if we want to call it that, right? And so anybody who knows, he ran for the gubernatorial, which is the governor
Governor.
of, sorry,
The governor running for governor.
right, this the gubernatorial race for governor of the state of New York, and in the polling and stuff like that, I think he was doing pretty well. I think he was like second or third or whatever the case might be. I think he was second. The Republican was basically a lamb for the slaughter. Like everybody knew he wasn't going to make it.
Right.
Right. So the polling was there. He was doing a lot of stuff. He got a lot of media. He was talking about real issues. He did not want to get into the mudslinging and, the back and forth, calling people Hitler and stuff like that. He wanted to address issues.
He just called him King Cuomo.
Right. So he poked fun at Cuomo, right? Which I think politicians are fair game. If lying Ted and all this other stuff, everybody's using the Trump mantra at this point. But he really talked about issues. He talked about marijuana. He talked about teachers. He talked about gun rights and all this stuff. And I don't know if you saw his well, it wasn't much of a concession speech, but he did a Facebook Live after the results came out where he won 4% of the vote. Was that it?
No, not even 2%.
Not even 2%. It was very small. It was all of the polling was wrong.
Right.
All of the Facebook stuff, the followers and stuff like that, none of that panned out to be anything. It wasn't worth anything. And all of his ideas, many of which were brilliant, people didn't care. People really didn't care. So this guy, for Mr. Yang, if he, the reason Trump won was because he had a message. And as crazy as it sounded, Mexico's going to pay for the wall. I'm going to bring the jobs back. I'm going to stick it to China. Nobody knew how the hell he was going to do any of that, all right?
Yeah.
And he still hasn't. To be fair, he hasn't done. I mean, he's done a lot, and he's actually surprised me tremendously. But he had a message that was positive for the people. And I don't think people are going to understand UBI. I don't think they're going to understand value-added tax. I think a lot of it is academic. And I might be completely wrong. I might need to hear him speak.
You gotta figure this too. I mean, just from a cultural standpoint, Chinese tend to be more in the academic, just as people in general.
Sure.
He seems like a nice guy and all this, and he's got these. I'm speaking great in a relative sense.
Yes.
He's got these great ideas, but he is just not. He's not really playing the, like you said, the politics card yet. He hasn't really played up to be like, he doesn't have any signature moves yet. He's not, doing this, it's a human right. He's not doing any of that.
He's not doing a Bernie.
He's not doing a Bernie. He doesn't, he's not, just huge,
He's not doing a Trump.
He doesn't have these things to really stick out just yet. And we're still very early on. I mean, Trump is obviously still doing all his rallies ever since he's pretty much been in office. And, you're starting to hear some polling coming from the Democrats as to who they feel is going to be a front runner or who's, wanting to run. And then you have this guy, Andrew Yang, coming out of nowhere from Iowa, of all places, to say, essentially giving a very, I would say for the Democrats to be a very utopian view of sort of what they want to do in the government. You see the way his website is designed, you see the thing he's proposing. He's just very sort of clean, eco, kind of like, hey, these like he's presenting some sort of a business plan, really, instead of like someone like Clinton or like even Bernie. Like they'll really play up sort of a vision versus a plan.
Correct.
You see him, he's got this whole list of things like, I didn't even get to read through all of them because there's just so many bullet points in that. and it might be all solid stuff, at least from his standpoint. It is still just a plan. It's like trying to
Yeah.
file a proposal with a business. Like, hey, I want this proposal for a business plan. Whereas a lot of the mainline, big name politicians are going to advertise and get out there based upon a vision. You know, start using big words. Human rights and women's right to choose. Like just a lot of these things that really,
Catchphrases.
yeah, things that tug at the heartstrings that go, ooh, he makes me feel like, man, I want to vote for this guy.
Yeah.
And he's just over here like human-centered capitalism, huh? Universal basic income. What? And it's a good thing. I mean, if you want to really markets up the term freedom dividend, that might go somewhere. If anything, maybe some other Democrats just going to pick it up and make it better.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. I mean, the U.S. political environment has shocked me on a number of occasions. So I will definitely say anything is possible, right?
Right.
And as you say, it's early days. Like a lot of people didn't think people like, especially on the Republican side for the last election. I think they knew it was a given that the Republicans were going to win. So everybody jumped in. There were like 19 candidates or something ridiculous. If you include all like the small people, but yeah, a lot of them actually did kind of build up a decent following. And they got try. I mean, nobody saw Trump coming, but Trump threw the entire thing for a spin. So thinking about 2020, can you think of any other Democrat who might be running that might get some kind of traction?
I mean, I honestly haven't been following it close enough to really make a call on that.
They think Cuomo is going to run, right?
Yeah, Cuomo is one of them.
They think Oprah.
I mean, Oprah running is like saying,
let's elect Mary Poppins.
Exactly. I mean, it's like you might as well say someone saw Bigfoot in today's day and age. It's like we've all heard about it. It's been talked about every election. It's not really serious.
Right. They even say Hillary might run again. Like some poll said.
Yeah. And so Hillary running again, that is actually, I see that as very possible that she would run.
Right.
Now, whether or not she would actually get nominated is a whole different thing. Is she going to rig the primaries in her favor again?
I don't think she has the sway in the Democratic Party as she once did.
Since they got caught with their pants down.
Yeah. Bernie might run.
See, I can see the Bernie angle if he were, 5 to 10 years younger.
Right.
But he's just too damn old.
He's like, what, 79 or something?
I mean, by the time he even gets into office, if he wins in the next election, the chances of dying start going so much higher due to natural causes. I mean, most presidents go in there with a certain hair color and come out with a certain hair color. He's going to go in with white hair and come out bald. The first bald president, that'll be interesting.
No, they had Truman. Not Eisenhower was bald.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Well, yeah. But I mean, you're seeing this. The Democrats kind of don't know what to do because, on one hand, they're still trying to figure out how to like. I mean, they're trying to really bank on like, hey, we gained some seats in the House, like, blue wave. It's like, no, you didn't. And how far left are they really going to go?
There's not much room left on the left for them to go, right? To be a progressive, because not all Democrats are progressive, but to be progressive, there's nowhere left to go except communism, right? And socialism and communism. So I think a lot of them are still in shock about Trump, as we know, right? Yeah. The mainstream media, the big ones, minus Fox, they're still harping on Trump. Trump is the story. So CNN is the biggest cheerleader for Trump, even though it's all negative. Trump is said pretty much on a daily basis on that station. I don't think that's ever been the case. So yeah, the Democratic and institutions are just lost. They have no direction. I'm very concerned about their some of their stances concerning immigration and other things. It's kind of open borders sort of nonsense and stuff. And they're not even defending the middle class, which used to be the Democratic platform. Let's fight for the little guy. They're not even doing that. They're the same corporate shills as the Republicans were accused of being, right? So
right. So yeah, I mean, we're definitely seeing the political parties are being seen for what they are,
yeah,
but they're still going to vote for them. People are still going to vote for those too. Uh, yeah, the left is they need to figure out. They really need to get their shit figured out because
yeah.
they're not going to really do much for winning. You know, they're going to get tired of losing.
I mean, even at this point, there's a bit of a civil war going on over the issue of Nancy Pelosi. Now, Nancy Pelosi must be like 112 or however old she is. She's very old. And she's starting to show her age, right? She's making some very bizarre gaffes and saying things like, we must stop President Bush. And, just like getting the presidents mixed up and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, she doesn't look nearly as old as someone like Bernie. And,
True.
Bernie is not really losing his mind yet.
Yeah, but she's from California, so they got all the Botox and everything else. He's from Vermont, yeah. Right? They rely on the cold to keep them young, and he's gone south for the winter. So anyway, but yeah, so there's so much division with the Democratic Party that they don't even know who to elect for Speaker. And just to go on to your point about the blue wave is the Democratic was supposed to be like the sweeping right. Yeah. So in U.S. politics, the red is Republican and the blue is the Democrat. And they thought there would be so much anti-Trump sentiment out there that there was just going to be a wash and the Democrats were going to be voted in. But this is not unusual. Most presidents lose the House or at least one of the legislatures in their first term. So I think Clinton lost like 50. Obama took a trouncing. He lost like 67.
I think they compared it and basically figured that Trump had a pretty good run for he didn't lose that many seats.
Yeah, as compared to the last, I think Bush for the first term there was 9/11, so that was a unique thing. So he actually gained seats in that midterm. So his first presidency, he actually maintained the House and the Senate. But for the second one, he lost it, which is around the 2008 presidency. It was 2008 is when the financial crisis. So they lost the Senate at that point. They lost the Congress and I think possibly the Senate. So that's a normal thing. But yeah, for Trump, for all the rhetoric, for all of the hate speech and all the propaganda that's coming out, he actually did really well. And I think, we obviously we're not hearing it, but I think he's got a lot of support for 2020. Like these rallies that he's doing, they're not hiding anything. These are like sold out. The arenas are sold out and people are showing up in the car parks to come and listen to Trump.
He is generating a lot of hype for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm pretty sure he's going to win a second term.
I was more banking on the fact just because I'm unfortunately the left is just going to double down further and further and further to just he's Hitler, we're in the right, and hate speech and all of just they're gonna go nuts. Let's unleash Antifa a few more times on unsuspecting Trump supporters with wearing the MAGA hat, and that's more in the fringe, I think, compared to what most your average day-to-day American hears about. But it is part of the conversation that the left is just doubling down on their constant shift of the Overton window, I think, to just more and more to the left.
Correct.
And they're just going to become less and less in touch with the American people. Even I'll agree with Tucker Carlson, talking about how the Democrats are not the party of the middle class American anymore. They just don't care about them that way anymore. If anything,
not that the Republicans are doing much better, but yes.
Right. But I mean, the Democrats were really banking on like, I mean, if the American middle class was like, like a newborn baby, they were always just coddling and holding and giving them everything they want. And nowadays they like, now that the middle class America is doing a little crying, like, fuck you, put you down, and I'm gonna
Beat
go
the
argue.
baby.
Not even beat, just put him down, let him cry, and go fight with dad, which is the Republican. Just and doubling down that he's trying to kill her or something. Just the crazy abused mother kind of. Again, for the listeners, just real quick, for the listeners, I am not advocating for domestic abuse. This is all joke. Please understand. Don't take this out of context.
Yeah, you've got to say that in this day and age.
Oh,
do you know who Greg Gutfeld is?
Oh, sounds so familiar.
Yeah, he's a commentator on Fox as well. He's a very funny guy. He's like a comedian.
Oh, right. Yep.
Yeah, him and Andrew Klavan, and I think he's been on Rubin Report and stuff like that. I really enjoy Gutfeld. He's fantastic. And he talked about the midterm election. And, of course, there's a show on a Fox News I used to watch it. I don't watch it anymore. But I caught the clip called The Five. And The Five is 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, and, semi-Republicans, like libertarian, and like a moderator, somebody kind of in the middle. And they have discussions about politics. So they just had the midterm elections and stuff like that. And Gutfeld was like, the libertarian in him was so pleased of this divided legislature. So the Democrats could go and play with their toys, and the adults, which are the Republicans, get to control the more serious house, right?
Right.
And for people who don't understand it, right? So the Democrats could do whatever they want in the Congress. But unless they could pass it in the Senate, nothing gets done. And this is what's sometimes called like a lame duck presidency, because they feel like the president's agenda, if his party is not in power, nothing is going to get through the Senate. And the Senate, you need 60 votes to pass legislation. So if you don't cross the aisle at some point, because neither side has 60, the Republicans didn't get 60, you're not going to get anything passed. And that's usually what ends up happening. Nothing ends up happening for like 2 years, right?
Right.
And Gutfeld was thrilled. He was absolutely thrilled with that. But I think because Trump is not a traditional Republican, I think he's going to surprise people with working with the Democrats for some good things, not stupid things.
I've heard that he, you never know that he could hold marijuana legalization or decriminalization as sort of a little like just a little
unifier.
Just something to really keep for either the end of this term or the end of the next term, to really just like in the end,
bring it home.
Just to be like, the left, they're kind of having some problems. I'll just throw that out there and see what they think, kind of like to really throw people off and go, okay, we're for this. Oh, he actually passed it. Oh, he signed off on it. Oh, the House and the Senate went with it. Okay, well, I guess he's not Hitler,
Well, for some people, he'll always be Hitler, and there's nothing you can do for some people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. I think, and there are some Democratic policies that I think are probably pretty good. Can't think of any, but I'm sure there are some that I probably would agree with. I mean, we have our own problems over here with Brexit and other things, so I can't keep track of all the madness on that side of the pond.
Yeah, you guys got your own problems over there.
Yeah. We may not even have a prime minister in like a week's time, so we'll see what goes on.
Absolute anarchy over there, man.
Oh, if we'd be so lucky.
Yeah, you got to talk to our friend Eric. Talk about that Black Flag anarchism.
Yeah, do the transition.
Push the Rothbard button in the UK. See what happens.
This would be the place to do it, I'm sure.
Oh boy, I mean, you're on an island, so you're kind of isolated. If shit goes down, it's not going to spread too far.
I mean, we do have the tunnels that go to France. And what is it, Calais or something like that. People actually hitch rides on trucks and stuff like that to get across to the UK. Like migrants will raid vans and delivery trucks, sneak in the back, and go through the tunnels to get to the UK.
Wait, the tunnels of France, you can drive vehicles through them? I thought it was just a train.
There's a train, and I think they do have. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but the cars go into the train. Like the delivery stuff goes into the
Oh,
train.
I'm sitting here like there's an actual road in these
No,
tunnels.
there's no road, but the vans and stuff like that go onto the train, or there's a ferry as well. But yeah, they're big enough to take all the stuff.
Huh. What is it
Oh,
called? The channel or whatever?
yeah, it's the channel. That's it.
Okay. Huh. Well, anything else you wanted to add, Brooke? I know we've got we're coming up on our time here, so I know we could have gone a little bit more into this guy Andrew Yang, but we'll definitely touch back on him as things develop with what's going on with him as time goes on.
Yeah,
Maybe
definitely.
maybe he'll make some more of an impression, and we'll actually have someone that's actually a real sort of contender in the primary process that will make him interesting. Otherwise, he's just gonna kind of become, maybe like you said with the was it 19 candidates on the Republican side during the campaign season.
Yeah.
Maybe the Democrats will do something similar. Well, they'll have like 10 to 15 candidates to start with.
Yeah, yeah. I think they probably feel that they actually have a chance of winning, which I think is unlikely.
Yeah,
But
usually, I mean, the way things have been going the past few presidencies, they have. I mean, the president is just. I mean, regardless of unless something crazy happens, he's
yeah,
just does 2 terms.
yeah. I think the only one recently was Bush the senior did not get a second term, and that was the Iraq War, and he lied about raising taxes and stuff like that. So I think, but everybody else has done 2 terms, at least within our lifetime. Reagan, Clinton, and then it was Bush the senior, and then we had no, it was Bush the senior, then Clinton, into what Bush the junior, Obama, and all of them have served 2 except Bush senior.
Yeah,
So
right,
it's
right.
statistically it's right. He's probably going to get a second term if he pulls off something with the Democrats. I think it's guaranteed. Like
A
the marijuana
third
thing,
term. Just kidding.
we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, see, they actually joked about that with Obama, and not too many people batted an eye. But then, if Trump said it, they would probably say he is the reincarnation of Hitler. You know,
Again.
again,
I mean, how much more Hitler can you really be, right?
he is more Hitler than Hitler himself. But anything you wanted to add, Brooke?
No. I thought he was an interesting guy. I definitely see a deficit in his accounting. I'm not a big fan of the UBI, but it might be coming regardless. So I
Yeah,
definitely think we need to do more research on that. I'm not a big fan of his increase of taxation and other things. But yeah, Medicare for all, I didn't read anything about that in the transcript, so I'll probably get a little bit more into that. But yeah, we'll follow him. Let's see where it all
right,
leads.
right. Now, okay, if UBI happens in the next 5 to 10 years, would you take your share?
Of course.
Okay,
If I had well, for us it's pounds. So if I had £1,000, even if I converted it as like 650
or
pounds,
even like 500 pounds.
or even £500 a month, that'll pretty much cover my rent. Not much else,
Right.
but yeah, it'll cover my rent and my internet bill possibly. Yeah, I think yeah, combined is less than £500. So I would, yeah, of course I'd take it.
Mm, yeah.
That's a given.
But yeah, thanks everyone for joining us today. Thank everyone for listening over across our different platforms. You could check us out on YouTube at Shitlord Preachers. If you just type into YouTube, you're going to see all of our episodes. This was our 32nd episode, which is pretty cool. Also, check out the network that we're part of now, Think Liberty. So think-liberty.com, as well as beinglibertarian.com, who is the new company that we're all sort of part of now, part of this new merger that took place a couple weeks ago. Check us out on social media. I'm at Amos Joe, AMOSJOE, and then Brook is at Brook_Potter. Subscribe to Brook's channel as well. He does a series of different kinds of videos talking on a lot of the things we talk about, but also going into some more other aspects like lifestyle and sort of life kind of stuff. And subscribe to this channel as well as subscribe to the Think Liberty Podcast Network to listen to the other podcasts as well. Thank everyone for joining us today. and we will see you guys next Monday.
Thanks for watching, guys.